Hello! In this video I'm going to show you a game in my Hiryu, which I think demonstrates kind of some of the reasons this is actually quite a powerful ship, while at the same time also showing you why I find aircraft carriers as a class to be a bit weak, and why they'll probably be the ship class that I always perform the worst at least statistically. Anyway, the matchmaker's actually been fairly kind to us in this game. It's a tier 7 game, and we're up against a Ranger class enemy carrier, which is pretty good since Rangers generally don't bring along that many fighters and we can actually outclass them in that respect. In this game it's actually even better because they don't bring along any fighters. They're going for a bomber heavy loadout, so we are pretty happy here. To be honest, we can gain air superiority. I mean, I haven't actually realised that yet because I haven't encountered the enemy's planes, but soon we will, and soon I'll be pretty confident. I've sent my fighters forward to scout, and I'm just ordering my bombers now to go circle over this battleship just so they're a little nearer to the enemy. My fighters have discovered, well, a Sims class destroyer and 2 tier 7 cruisers, so I pull back. I don't really want to be around a tier 7 cruiser, at least not if I don't have any reason to be. So I just order my fighters to kind of fly along the front lines here towards A, just see what we can spot. We have spotted a battleship back further. I pull my planes away just because I don't want to get pinned down by those enemy fighters. It's not so much that fighters will do a lot of damage, but that they'll get me trapped within those cruisers' AA zones, and I don't want that. I've just spotted another battleship just to the south of where I'm looking. I was watching the minimap at this point, so unfortunately we're just going to stare at the ocean, but apparently that's how I play carriers. So yeah, we've spotted a bunch of enemy ships, a couple of battleships there, a Miyogi. Oh well, that must suck for that guy. He's obviously in a bit of a fail platoon. I'm ordering my fighters back just to have another quick scout at the enemy, and we spot a cruiser with that Miyogi. Which means we're not going to be attacking those 2 battleships, and instead we're going to be focusing on... Well, actually, we've just spotted the enemy's aircraft, and I see their bomber heavy, and I see they're heading kind of towards me, so I send my fighters back to guard the carrier, and then get my torpedo bombers onto this New York, because it's not being escorted by an aircraft carrier. But I changed my mind, decided to switch targets to the Fuso. The Fuso is a tier 6 battleship, the New York's a tier 5 battleship. I obviously want to take out the tier 6 before the tier 5, so the tier 6 it is. And in this situation they're basically as vulnerable as each other, so yeah. I send Squadron 6 in first with its dive bombing attack, while my torpedo bombers fly in slightly behind it. Do a manual attack because I basically always do manual attacks on this, and I manage to start a fire. My torpedoes are in the water, and I zoom in just to see what happens, and the Fuso put that fire out just before my torpedoes arrived. Unfortunately I don't get any flooding, but it does mean that if I start a fire with Squadron 7 here, that fire is going to burn well until it extinguishes naturally. So I line up. Unfortunately I ruined my approach, so I have to fiddle a bit while I try and get a decent bombing run in, but I can't manage it. Pull my planes right back, try this again from the start kind of thing. Here we go, this looks good. And there's a fire. And you can see that Fuso's almost dead. I didn't do all of that damage, I did do some of it, but it's mainly my team's been firing away at it as well. And that fire I just set will apparently go on to do almost 11,000 damage. And you can do the maths, you'll see that Fuso isn't going to last very much longer, although I won't get the kill. It will put the fire out just before it dies, or a few thousand hit points before it dies, and then it'll get sunk by my team. But anyway, that bomber raid that the enemy carrier sent at us, obviously, well, it wasn't sent at us, it didn't get anywhere near my carrier, but my team's positioning here isn't that great. They're concentrated, which is generally a good thing. But they've got no one off on the flank, where you saw me looking at that Miyoko earlier, and there's no one went to sea at all. For some reason our team went very wide around it. and we're very heavily concentrated in B, but unfortunately the enemy have basically surrounded our team on 3 sides, which is going to make it difficult for us to concentrate fire on a single enemy ship. But well, the advantage of my team being all concentrated is that it makes it easy for me to cover them with my fighters, so I've sent them forward to try and protect my team. And well, this New York's the only one without cruiser cover again, so even though it's only a tier 5 battleship, it's still getting my torpedo bomber's attention. There's the enemy carrier spotted and some of its dive bombers, but they aren't moving yet, so I'll leave my fighters back at my allied team. Just don't really want to engage the dive bombers over the aircraft carriers' AA guns. They will slaughter my fighters. So as you see, my dive bombers, I've ordered them to fly to basically directly behind the New York. They will arrive sometime after the torpedo bombers, which is basically what I want in this situation. Hopefully my torpedo bombers will cause flooding, and then it'll put it out, and then my dive bombers can come in to start a fire. But even if that doesn't happen, I'm happy to do some damage. And here come the enemy dive bombers. So I send 1 squadron of fighters onto each dive bomber squadron, and I'd go back to focus on my torpedo bombers, which have almost arrived at the New York. And of course I'm doing a cross attack, which is actually all you're going to see me do in this video. It's my preferred attack in Japanese aircraft carriers in general. In the Hiryu, manual attacks are kind of a very valid method of attack, but I still generally stick with this way just because I'm used to it and I can do it pretty effectively. Just switch Squadron 3, which shot down its enemy target, onto a new squadron of bombers coming in. The New York took 2 torpedoes there, and my dive bombers are now coming in. Again, didn't cause any flooding. You don't really seem to cause that much flooding with torpedoes nowadays. But I did manage to start a fire in the New York, and I bring Squadron 7 in. And well, get 2 more hits, start another fire, but the New York will put those fires out very quickly, so we won't do very much damage at all. It's just a case of, in that situation, I really don't want to hang around above the enemy's AA guns for long, especially when there were 2 more battleships coming down on us. So I was kind of just trying to drop my bombs quickly, do what damage I could, and then leave. And who here noticed that enemy destroyer pop up on the minimap for a second? Maybe not even that. Because I did. It's actually right behind me, which is why you see me slowly accelerating to get away from here. At the time I didn't actually realise it was a destroyer. I just saw something red flicker on the map about 7 or 8 kilometres behind me. And my ally also saw it and clicked the map just in case I hadn't, but I just started moving. I decided to actually head down towards C since my team still hasn't captured it, even though we're basically in control of it. And I figured I'd better do my part for the team. So you see me just slowly moving out of cover from that island. But otherwise, things are actually looking pretty good for us at this point. We've only lost 3 ships, while the enemy team has lost 5. And I've kind of had a hand in 2 of it. That Fuso I attacked at the start is now dead, died shortly after me. That New York was, well, after my bombing attacks were on very little health, and my team finished it off. So I've managed to, I haven't got any kills, but I've had a decent assist on 2 enemy battleships, although they were 2 weak enemy battleships. Although having said that, it doesn't actually seem to be any strong ones. The Fuso was probably the most powerful battleship on the enemy team. At least I've only seen New York, Congo, and Myogo. Well, we just lost the battleship there, which is not ideal, but I've got my torpedo bombers coming in to attack the Congo just to help my friendly Nagato here out. And, well, my fighters have just landed to rearm, so we're not going to be able to intercept these bomber squadrons that you've just seen flying up to attack my ally here. And is it a Nagato? Yes, it is. So they must have a tier 7 battleship somewhere. But the dive bombers are coming in. And well, actually looked like it missed there, but it's not going to. There we go. There were a couple of hits there. But this fight, well, my bombers are almost there, and Nagato just landed a big hit on the Congo, but I completely didn't register that happened, so I continued to let my torpedo bombers attack this battleship. when I probably should have gone and tried to sink the Myogi, because this is complete and utter overkill here. Yeah, one torpedo sinks it, but I get 2 more hits, and to be honest, it didn't even need 1 torpedo. It would needed probably another 2 seconds under the secondary fire of the Nagato, and it would have died. But yeah, kill stolen. Here come my dive bombers to attack the Myogi. And again, it's on very low health, but I decide this time I'm going to just go finish it off. This is the kind of thing dive bombers are good for. We get a hit, we leave it on about 30 hit points, so the Nagato finishes it off. And now I'm not sure what to do with my dive bombers, so I just send them to scout out, see if they can find anything. I order my fighters to attack the enemy torpedo bomber squadron, which is obviously coming to attack this Nagato here. And we've got the torpedo bombers, which is good, and the destroyer is spotted again, well to my north, and you didn't really see it there because it doesn't show waypoints, but that was me setting a waypoint into sea. And now, we've spotted the enemy carrier again, but I decided to send my dive bombers after the enemy cruiser. Unfortunately, it just managed to sink the Nagato, so I was a bit slow there. I probably should have sent my dive bombers straight after it instead of trying to scout. Although I think it's got enough hit points that it wouldn't have actually made a difference. Order my fighters back to guard the York, since, well, suddenly our team's not very concentrated. We've got 2 cruisers in the centre, and 1 cruiser off on the far east of the map. And me and this destroyer kind of heading down towards sea. And, well, we're in a stern chase here, which is kind of good for me, kind of bad for me. It means that when I see the destroyer turn, I'm pretty certain it's going to fire torpedoes, so I'll be able to turn and dodge them pretty easy, so that's the good news. Bad news is I can't actually shoot back at this Hatsuharu with my secondary guns unless I turn broadside onto it. So even though it's not doing a lot of damage to me, I can't really respond. But I have to kill this guy, and of course I see enemy dive bombers coming in, so I order my fighters to attack them. Set up a cross attack with my torpedo bombers. It's very unlikely to work against the destroyer, but occasionally you get lucky. Torpedoes are in the water, my bombs also go and miss, and I see the Hatsuharu's torpedoes are in the water. So I start turning to avoid them. My fighters manage to shoot down one of the enemy squadrons, but there are a lot more heading our way. And yet my torpedoes completely miss, but we get a bit lucky there, and they force the Hatsuharu to turn back behind its smokescreen. And yep, 3 enemy dive bomber squadrons coming in. They look like they're heading towards this cruiser that's coming back to support us. Well, maybe they're coming back to support us, maybe they're just coming back to capture sea. And I'm still under fire from the Hatsuharu, but it's at much longer range and it misses me completely there. Its torpedoes have missed. And I also saw it fired all of its torpedoes, so I know that for a decent, well, minute I suppose actually, I'm basically don't have to worry about the Hatsuharu's torpedoes attacks, and its guns aren't powerful enough to really worry about. And I'm getting my dive bombers back up in the air. Unfortunately, my fighters have run out of ammunition, so they can't really support my allied cruiser against this dive bomber attack that's coming in on it. And unfortunately, that cruiser was sunk. But it was actually sunk by an enemy cruiser. So, but 2 of the dive bomber squadrons dropped their bombs on it beforehand, and the 3rd one is actually going to come after me. And you're going to get to see something pretty awesome about the Hiryu, which is the strength of its AA guns. It's not as powerful tier for tier as the Ryujo at 6, but I have basic firing training, advanced firing training, and it's still pretty powerful. So you see 5 dive bombers coming in. My fighters are just coming to land. They were only slightly faster than the... Oh, I actually got a bomb to land on that Hatsuharu. And that's 2 of the dive bombers shot down by my AA guns. And there's 3 and 4. So only 1 bomber made it to its target, and of course that 1 bomb lands a direct hit and starts a fire, because of course. And here come 2 torpedo bombers. I order my fighters, which are just getting back in the air, to attack it, and my AA guns to focus on it. Shoot down 1 with AA guns. Actually, there were 3 coming in, not 2. And, well, 2 more once my fighters engage, which might have been my AA guns, might have been my fighters. Which puts me up at 27 aircraft kills, but now I'm under fire from this Pensacola. I did get my torpedo bombers back up in the air, so I decided to send them off to deal with that Pensacola while I turn away from the Hatsuharu's torpedoes. Turns out it was unnecessary because the torpedoes didn't have the range to reach me. And I'm also ordering my fighters to basically escort this cruiser you see beside me. It's my only ally left, and we're up against 4 enemy ships. As you can see, the enemy ships have a fair bit of hit points, but I'm about to get quite lucky against this Pensacola. So it turns away from my torpedoes, and it looks like it's going to do pretty well at dodging. Takes 1 hit directly on the stern there, but it's actually in a situation here where its options are either to take some more hits from my torpedoes or run aground. And that really should be an easy decision to make. But it decides to take another torpedo instead of running aground. And I probably would have actually got a 3rd hit there if my torpedoes had a bit more range, but it wasn't to be. But still, 2 hits against the cruiser. It went from full health to less than half its health. I'm pretty happy with that. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to pull my fighters back here just because they're getting under too much anti-aircraft fire from the enemy ships approaching. But I've got my dive bombers coming in. I really need to assist my Miyoko here to keep it alive because I need it to kill this destroyer that's been harassing me and is coming back at me again. I also decide, you can kind of see on the minimap, that I'm going to swing my ship right round and close in and engage the enemy with my secondary guns just because we need to deal with this quickly and eliminate these enemies as quickly as we can. The Pensacola ends up eating torpedoes from my Miyoko, but unfortunately, because I issued a manual attack, my dive bombers went in and basically dropped their bombs on its wreck. So that was a complete waste on my part. And yeah, that destroyer's closing in again. And there are dive bombers heading towards the Miyoko and my fighters. As I said, I pulled them back because I didn't want them under anti-aircraft fire. And that Miyoko's on painfully low health. Turns out it doesn't actually matter because the Hatsuharu kills it just before the dive bombers arrive, but still, I'm the last hope for my team, and that's not really a good place to be in a Hiryu. Stick my torpedoes in the water, but the Hatsuharu looks like it slows right down and completely dodges them. And I'm under fire from an enemy cruiser off in the distance, which is also bad news. Enemy bombers are coming in, my fighters are engaging them, so we're starting to shoot some down, and my secondary guns are firing away at the Hatsuharu. I sort of turned broadside onto me, so I shooted 5 torpedoes, but because I hadn't spotted them, I actually swing my ship back away from it, because for some reason it didn't fire its torpedoes at me. And the dive bombers are coming in, we're shooting down lots of them, it's just the counter's going up and up, we're up to 6, 7 bombers shot down. And the Hatsuharu's turned broadside on again. I've sent my bombers in to attack it. Basically, when they get off the ship, they head straight to that destroyer. My secondaries are firing away at it. Hatsuharu's actually lost a lot of its health. It was full health when it found me. It's half health now. But my bombers aren't really getting the hits on it that I need to sink it. And I need to sink it. My fighters and anti-aircraft guns are doing very good work though. We're up to 45 enemy aircraft shot down, and there's the Hatsuharu's torpedoes, a lot later than I expected. But I'd already started turning away, so they're not ever going to hit me. Torpedoes on my side in the water, but the Hatsuharu turns, so I never had a chance of hitting it. And it takes out my steering. Fortunately my secondary guns are able to fire back at it, but this isn't good. I'm not going to be able to dodge its next salvo of torpedoes. But, well, turns out I don't actually have to, because the game ends, the enemy team wins on points. But to be honest, I didn't have much longer to live. The thing is, I actually did pretty well in that game. 43 aircraft shot downs, a pretty good start, and as I said, I had a hand in kind of sinking 4 enemy battleships early on in the match, and I did well to survive as long as I did against the Hatsuharu and enemy cruisers. But, and you see here I did just under 11,000 damage with fire. What's that, 60,000-ish? Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but 60,000-ish with direct damage from my aircraft, and even 3,000 with my secondary guns, all against that Hatsuharu there. But it just wasn't enough. I was also top of my team by a fair margin, as you can imagine. The thing is, even though I did kind of well, I could have done better. I made a few mistakes, but basically it just wasn't enough. Like, it's just very, very difficult to carry games in aircraft carriers. And when your team just kind of completely collapses, lets the enemy through to you, so you've got to defend yourself instead of helping your team, and then they just melt under the pressure from the enemies. There's actually very little you can do to stop it, instead, other than just sending your bombers in and hope you do enough damage to, well, reverse the melting. Didn't do it in this game. Sometimes I can do it, and sometimes I can actually carry if I play aggressively and use my secondaries and take out enemies, dodge torpedoes, and do all that good stuff. But it's not easy. And for me, that's kind of why aircraft carriers, I think, are always going to be the weakest class for me, even if they are, you know, tier 10 aircraft carriers where they've got very fast, very powerful, and lots of aircraft. They're still entirely dependent on the rest of the team basically performing adequately, and quite often your teams don't. But that's just how online gaming is. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time.